So without further ado, guys, we have Kieran in here, and I know you guys want to know Q2 open beta. Kieran, please tell us about that.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mike. So it's super exciting. We've been building for 3 and a bit years now, and all 3 of our games, Illuvium Arena, Overworld, and Zero, are going live in Q2 of next quarter. And yeah, it's the first time that our gamers will actually be able to own their assets that they get from within the games, and it's the first time that you'll actually be able to earn from Illuvium games.
Nice. Do we have an idea of approximately when in Q2?
We don't yet. So there's one large feature across all 3 games that we're looking to implement, and we don't have. We know we'll be able to get that done in the next few months, but we don't know exactly when, and so we're reluctant to say like, "Hey, lock in this date." Although we're working towards it, and we're getting pretty damn close.
Okay, so from that kind of vibe, probably not April, but fairly soon after that?
Yeah, you could say that, yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And so I guess the biggest things is now you can actually collect and keep your alluvials and the experience you get in the game, but is there anything that people will like really notice, like a main key feature when we hit the big beta?
So alluvial hunting in the overworld, that's been the biggest piece of feedback that we've received over the last 2 years, has been actually seeing the alluvials in the overworld, in the environment, and creating that connection with the character. It's something that Pokemon do really well. Palworld did it more recently, and that was missing from our overworld game, and we've been working really, really hard over the last 6 to 9 months to get alluvials roaming around. And so I think no one has played that yet, and when they get in and experience that for the first time, it'll be that like wow moment.
Nice. So it's cool that you brought up Palworld now, because I have a question on that later, but might as well get to it now since you brought it up. So for people who have played Palworld, what could we say the similarities and differences would be with like Illuvium Overworld?
So we've gone into more depth with our character creation, and so what we're trying to do is create a connection between the characters and the players, something that Pokemon did extremely well. And part of that is having really detailed looking characters, and that is something where I loved playing Palworld and I thought it was really cool, but I just didn't get that deep connection like we're trying to achieve with our game. But then there are a bunch of other features that they have in Palworld which you won't find in Illuvium. Things like being able to build structures and a house and stuff like that. There won't be, but then some of the other features that are in Palworld, where the last few months people have said, "Hey, how come this isn't in Illuvium?" You might be very surprised once we go live.
So that brings us a lot of information, and it's nice to hear that you're going to go beyond what Palworld has done. I mean, technically they just built something really quickly as like indie devs, but you also brought up something with Pokemon that made me think of like the lore and things like that, and like this deep story coming with Illuvium. So is there a chance in the future that we have some type of like YouTube TV series or actual TV series, or have you guys thought about that, building up actual video series behind it as well, like Pokemon did?
100%, yeah, absolutely. We've my brother and co-founder has always wanted to create some kind of video series, whether that be TV or maybe movies or shorts or whatever it is. I think part of creating that psychological connection with these characters is bringing it to life in a video type format. And you would have seen it with some of our cinematics, and we have a new cinematic which we've been working on, which will go live before open beta. But that type of content is really what makes someone think, you know what, I love that character and I want to do everything in my power to capture it.
Yeah, exactly. And then like Pokemon, when they started going to the big screen, it got huge. And like even something like fiction like Harry Potter, it got super big in the books, but then when it came to the big screen, it was Harry Potter mania around the world. So it'd be nice to see some type of traction on that. Have you put a time horizon? It's like something you're going to look at the next year or 5 years. Have you thought about that at all for getting content like that out?
No, we haven't put a great deal of thought into that. I think the first thing is getting adoption of our games, right? Like we're not even live yet, and it's been a long journey, and so it's easy to sort of think, oh well, Illuvium's been around for so long then, but no, like we haven't even launched yet. So first thing that we're focused on is a successful launch, get as many players in as possible, and then we can start spreading the IP from there.
Okay, sounds good. Now we're going to dive more into the game specifically and what's happening now. We're hearing a lot about your airdrop, so I'd like to know if you could give us a little bit of information on that, and then I'm sure you're going to be rewarding players that have been playing around for a while, but if people get started now, is there also opportunity for them?
Yes, so there's going to be 2 phases of our airdrop. The first one will be a thank you to anyone who's participated in the ecosystem through a multitude of ways. That could be staking, that could be purchasing of land, governance, like buying Illuvitas. So all of those interactions in the past, or really now, because we won't cut this off until the announcement. Those people will. There's a portion of that airdrop that will be sent to those people, and then the major one is this second phase that I talk about, which is basically in our testnet. Once we go live on Sepolia, which is going to be very, very soon, people will start to be able to collect these things. You won't hold the actual character. We will do another reset, but you will be able to get in and start earning some of those airdrop points. And then once we go onto mainnet, that's when you really start generating a ton of points. And then at the end of the airdrop campaign, you'll convert those points to ILV. And the amount is it's a lot of money, put it that way.
Nice. Yeah, I've heard that you've had like a community bucket that you've just been sitting there since the original token launch back in the day. So it'll be exciting to see what that is for the community.
Yeah. And we're fortunate enough to be because we've been around for so long, that million ILV that we put aside has a very substantial value. So we're not going to be drawing down all of it, or even more than half. And so we will still have additional community rewards and incentives in the future, but this first one is to get like hundreds of thousands of people into the ecosystem playing the game, and then we go from there.
Sounds good. So you brought up having testnet first. Is that something that like people should be glued to your news like soon, like the testnet's coming soon, or is it like a bit further away?
We're going to make an announcement about our initial testnet, I would say this week.
Oh, amazing. And are people going to need like a code to get in, or is it going to be accessible to whoever's in your Discord or Twitter?
Initially there will be it will be private, and then a few weeks after that we'll be going live where anyone can join. And so we want to actually partner with a bunch of different companies like yourselves to do a giveaway for those initial spots, because the lucky people that get into that initial private beta that's on testnet, they will gain some airdrop points as well.
Okay, so for those of you who haven't paid too much attention to Illuvium yet, so Overworld is their big open world explorer, similar to that Palworld vibe and Pokemon, where you're going around and interacting with characters. But then they've also got Illuvium Arena, which is more of a battler. And now, Kieran, I've heard there's some big updates coming up for that. So could you please let us know a little bit about that?
Yeah, so the initial launch of the Arena beta was I guess it had mixed reactions. There were some people who are more like myself that are into more of like a casual sort of game that is less like chess, I guess, and gives you a little bit more agency to go and pivot your strategy mid-game. that is what we've been working on for a long time, to be able to come up with a mode that is best of both worlds. So those advanced players that like things to be really, really strategic, and the team building that goes into it has a lot of complexity there. But then also going into the game, having a lot more strategy there as well, where if you come up against a team that counters yours, you're not just dead in the water, right? Like there is the ability to pivot out of it, and if you're smart enough, then you can come up with a way to counter their build, and all of that can be done inside of the game. And that is what was missing, right? Like people would play and they would say, oh no, I can tell that I'm going to lose this from the outset. And so by changing up the game rules a little bit, it means that things are a little bit more simple, but there's also a whole bunch more strategy to it. And I think it gets us a lot closer to that like Hearthstone vibe. And then on top of that, we're also we've designed an 8-player mode, which is more of that casual sort of game that I was talking about. Very similar to Teamfight Tactics, where there's a bunch more RNG, where if you're not the best player in the world, you can still have a really fun experience, and it's not like you need to be playing 10 hours a day just to win a single battle.
Yeah, it's nice to have that. Like I'm a little bit older now, so it's a bit hard. Like I remember in my very early 20s, I was doing MMORPGs and like grinding 12 hours a day and stuff, and it was fun because I got to unlock these exclusive things. And I had people naming accounts after me because I got to the top of the leaderboard, and it was a good feeling. But now I'm old, and I don't have time for that anymore. So when I come in to play Illuvium, I'm looking for something like a bit more of that experience where I don't have to dedicate my life to it. So that's exciting that you've got the thoughts of the two different kinds of play styles. Mm-hmm. And then where that often comes into in crypto gaming, especially, is I'm sure you've heard of what happened with Axie Infinity, of course, and Thetan Arena, where the economies didn't scale, and then things kind of exploded, and then there's pay to win, and like obviously you don't want to destroy an ecosystem with that. So we know that for grinding out like level 0 illuvials and things like that, there'll technically be a way to keep this game like free, but that's not going to be for everyone because of the amount of like hours you need to physically grind for that. But do you have like a ballpark figure of like, if I'm a guy, like I've got some money that I can spend on this game, I don't want to spend a lot of time grinding, but I still want to like, put a good amount of time in to get the full experience, mm-hmm. Like using fuel and things like that to get around, like how much I'd probably have to spend to have a good experience in this?
It's an interesting one, right? Because what you're doing in the overworld is essentially gathering the resources and the characters that you need to play other games in our ecosystem. And so the free-to-play aspect, where you can go and get these tier 0 characters, the idea is, and people have already seen it with the version of Arena that we have now, even using tier 0 characters, there isn't a huge disparity in the power of them, and you can still be a very good Arena player just by going in and playing with the free illuvials that you capture. So that's the first thing there. The second is that there's also rotating decks where we will give you access to those characters for a limited time, and it won't cost you anything to do that. And so what we're trying to do is strike a balance between accessibility, but also keeping it, I guess, true to crypto form, where if you are spending a lot of time or you're spending a lot of money, you will be able to access all of the characters, you will be able to go and purchase them, but that doesn't necessarily make you a better player in the arena. And that's the way that we want things to be across all of the games in the ecosystem, where you still get to flex on people and say, hey, I've got all of the tier 5 characters, but that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go in and just destroy someone. Now, in terms of how much money you want to spend, I think it's going to be somewhere, to have a good experience, it's going to be somewhere around like that $30 a month mark. But again, it's a huge scale, right? Like where if you want to go and capture all of the tier 5 characters, our best characters, then you're going to need to spend a lot more than that, and you're going to need to spend a lot more time than that. And so it just depends. You basically get to choose your experience on the entire spectrum, whether it be spend nothing or spend a metric ton, and you'll get a good experience across the board.
Nice. It's nice to hear that like you've got that option of the $30 a month, because in crypto that's essentially free, especially when you look at the Axie model of having to buy the NFT, and they went up to thousands of dollars, so the barrier to entry in the game was just like so high. You were kind of like forced to grind to rent, and that kind of didn't create the best environment. So it's nice that we have this option of like $30 per month. But like you said, if you want to be the best with like the most characters, and you are the person that doesn't mind YOLOing a ton of money into it, then you can do that for like the prestige, but you don't need to do it for the enjoyment of the game, which is really cool. And then one thing that is like somewhat new to the game now is fuel. So can you tell us like a little bit about like what fuel is, how people get it, why it's brought into the game?
Yeah, so fuel is generated from the players in Illuvium Zero. So Illuvium Zero will be accessible to everyone, and we want to do that because it is on mobile, and we think that's a very large market. Sure, yeah. But the players that are in Zero that own a land plot, they're the ones that are actually able to generate fuel. Now, fuel is required by anyone who wants to do interactions in the overworld. So traveling to a region, curing a shard, which is essentially like a Pokeball, capturing illuvials, and fusing together illuvials, because you can capture 3 of the same one and fuse them together, and that creates a more powerful version of that illuvial. That takes a little bit of fuel, and so all of these interactions are required, and fuel is required. And the cool thing is the people who are the players who are generating this fuel, they get to decide what price they sell that fuel on the open market. And so you get this really cool system where it's essentially an open market where anyone who wants to sell their fuel at any price can. And if someone goes in and they see like a really cheap order where they can go in and scoop up all of that fuel, and then they've run out of the supply there, so the price starts ticking up. And then if there's a whole bunch of fuel that gets dumped on the market again, the price is going to go down. So you find out what the true value of fuel is over time, and that's decided by both the players on the Illuvium Zero side and the rest of the ecosystem. And so it's kind of tough, going back to your previous question about like how much money do you need to spend. While I think that sweet spot will be around the $30, I don't know, right? Like, because of that dynamic pricing of fuel, it could be a little bit cheaper one week, and then it could be more expensive the next. And that's kind of why we built this inter-economy, is we want it to be exciting like that, and give agency back to the players.
Exactly. Make it more feel like real life as much as you can. And if you see a good deal, hoard up some fuel and and see how it goes. So that's really interesting. Now I've got a few questions for you that are slightly getting on the outside of the game, looking in. First segue to that, though, is esports. I know that you enjoy esports. Have you thought of how you could incorporate esports into Illuvium, whether it be within the game itself, or if it's more of like a Fortnite style where people are in the overworld gathering around, and maybe there's like a concert like they've done in Fortnite before? Have you thought of adding any elements to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So about midway through last year, we did we had a partnership with Team Liquid, and that's an ongoing thing that we have with them. On top of that, we've got a couple of other esports organizations that we partnered with. The first big integration that we're doing is a tournament that's hosted by Liquid, and so some of their players will come in and participate in that. And I think it's 140,000 is the prize pool there, so it's a significant chunk of money for players to come in and win. And that's only the start, right? Like we have this fund of $130 million sitting there to incentivize people. Part of it is taking some of that ILV and portioning it towards tournaments over a period until we can reach sustainability with them, and having very large prize pools that compete with traditional mainstream esports tournaments. And so that's our plan with Arena. We don't have any plans with Overworld yet. I mean, there's some interesting concepts, but the main one is going to be Arena game.
Okay, nice. And with a $140,000 prize pool, I know a lot of people are going to be eagerly awaiting that, and that'll bring a lot more attention to Illuvium as well. So that's definitely exciting. For those people who haven't quite looked into your staking model and the vaults and things yet, we covered it briefly back in our video. I think it was October or November. But how you're using your staking model as well as the vaults to like buy back tokens and things like that. Can you let people know like a little bit about how that works from your perspective, as well as like why they should consider potentially staking the ILV token?
Yeah, so this is something that I'm very, very excited about, and I have been for, since inception when we came up with this. It's a fairly novel way of distributing tokens back to our investors, but basically how it works is so all of the in-game revenues across literally everything, that's Zero, Beyond, Overworld, Arena, all of those interactions that I just spoke about, we pool up those funds and they go inside of a vault, and periodically that vault will trigger and we will buy ILV off the market. So let's just assume we have $10 million of ETH that's sitting in this vault. We will go onto the market, we'll buy $10 million worth of ILV. Crazy. With that buy, you're going to see a crazy increase in the token price. We then take that ILV and distribute it to all of the people that are staked in the protocol. And when I say we take it, we use a smart contract. So this is all automated, but it goes back to the people that are staked in the protocol. And what we think is going to happen with this sort of model is, because it's unlocked ILV that people are getting and they're investors, there's going to be a portion that people sell immediately because they're looking to get a return on their investment, and that's fine. But we think there's going to be another portion where people restake it because they see, okay, if $10 million came in month 1, what happens month 2 and 3 and 4? And the more you have staked, the higher your portion of those distributions is going to be. And so it's in your best interest to keep that number going up. And when you're doing that, the more people that have ILV staked, the less that's circulating. And so it's all about the appreciation of the token price through this model.
Yeah, no, that's really impressive. Now, a lot of our audience is gamers, so I just wanted to let you guys know at home, if you're only used to gaming and you haven't quite got into staking yet, a lot of platforms, what they do with their staking is they're just inflating the supply. So when distributions happen, it's just making the token value worth less. So it's not actually the best model, especially for people who are like grinding and not playing the game. They kind of lose out a little bit. So what's really interesting about what Kieran just said is now you can tell that the actual protocol or project Illuvium has a lot of concern for their economy. They've put thought into it, and this kind of buyback mechanic that they've put through their vaults and their staking model is something that you can see like they're really seeing longevity here in the market, and something that, of course, we can't give financial advice, but if you're already excited about Illuvium, it's something that you should definitely look into checking out. And then so on that same side about getting involved with Illuvium on that side, can you talk to us a little bit about the Illuvium DAO, what the roles are, and how people can get involved?
Yeah, so the other use case for the ILV token outside of the revenue distributions that you get is governance. And so I believe we're the first truly decentralized studio in this space. Maybe there's more now. I haven't kept up with it too well, but basically what that means is the token holders decide the future of where we go. And so when we think about once we go live, very soon after, we're going to have to make the decision on what's the fourth game that we start building inside of the ecosystem. So what the team will do is we'll put together a bunch of game pitches, and that might come from like 4 or 5 or 6 members inside the community. And we'll say, we have the potential to build any of these 6 games, and we think based on our core competency, it fits well. And so we do a bit of due diligence on like the types of games based on the developers and the artists and the IP. And then we take we take all 6 choices and we go to the DAO and we say, now it's your job to vote on which game you would like us to build next, which that concept is crazy, right? Like if you look at something like a Blizzard or a Riot, can you imagine if you were able to go to them and say, hey, you know, we don't want a fighting game next, we want a racing game or whatever it might be. Like that participation and agency that you give over to the community creates so much excitement, and it's this new paradigm that I think, give it 5, 10, 15 years, other games, once we start seeing really successful Web3 games, mainstream games are going to have to start adopting a similar method in order to get the same buy-in from their community.
Yeah, nice. It's so amazing to see what things like tokenization and DAOs are creating, because it's not only like just Discord where you can listen to your people, and it's great that you actually do listen to people in your Discord, the community, but it's also now that they can vote and actually be part and have a stake in the game that they love is amazing with blockchain gaming. Now, we've just got a couple quick final questions for you here. The first one is like a community question. We touched on it a little bit earlier, but essentially, when next trailer?
So we are going to do a YouTube premiere for this next trailer, and we want to get it up about a month before we go live, so we can start building the hype. We start directing a whole bunch of traffic over to the premiere, and then the day, like the aim will be to get like 10,000 or 20,000 people watching, and then once we push that button, everyone gets notified, and hopefully, you know, the trailer can be pretty big. I would say, I guess people are going to do some calculations and work out dates from this, but it will be sometime in the next like 4 to 6 weeks when we put that announcement.
Okay, very exciting. So it's all coming together. That leads us to the last question here. And if you could pick anything that you know is coming up that you can still talk to us about, if we were to look forward to something in April, what would you say the most number one thing is that you're excited for in like the April time range? And then if we're looking like 2 years now, what's the biggest thing that you're excited for like your vision long term?
So I would say look out for end of April, this getting inside this private beta that will go out. As I said, you'll get airdrop points for that. We'll be doing something with you guys where your listeners can potentially get in that. It'll be very limited in the number of spots, but it'll be very, very good if you get in. So that's something to get excited for at the end of April. And then long term, I would say it's just seeing the interoperability of the additional games that we built. We've put out our roadmap before, and on that roadmap there's been 10 different games that we want to see inside of the ecosystem. I think it's just a really cool concept to be able to capture these creatures and craft your weapons and armor inside of one game, and then take that character, start playing in the arena like you are now, but in the future maybe it's a kart racing game or a dungeon crawler or a tower defense or whatever it might be. That whole concept where you're not buying a new game, you're not even buying new characters, you take your existing stuff and you can start playing a completely new game without starting from scratch. I feel like that whole concept is going to start becoming viral inside the gaming industry.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's like creating everything like full picture, and it's amazing how blockchain gaming and owning your own digital assets, being part of the token community is like all coming together for this one like holistic opportunity, and great for gamers because they need something like that. So unless you have anything else to cover that you think we should jump into, I think this was great, and I just wanted to thank you so much for your time today, Kieran.
No, that's it. I think you got a couple of leaks out of me there. So
guys, we got some leaks. Remember that. So where should people go other than fungible.games to check out all the exciting news articles that we're putting out and walkthroughs about Illuvium? Where's best for people to find out you? Is it Discord or what do you think?
Yeah, Discord is where we post updates first, and then it quickly goes on to social media. Our X account is the most up-to-date thing for people on socials. But yeah, definitely join in on the community. Another little leak for you is that there's going to be a large portion of those private members that get into that beta starting in April will come from our Discord. So definitely join our Discord. That's going to be one of the best ways to get into
Exciting.
this
So you guys heard it here first. Stay tuned to fungible.games because we're going to find out the information and give it to you as soon as we can. But for you guys that are really excited about this, drop everything you're doing right now and head on over to the Illuvium Discord. Become a member because you're definitely going to want to be some of the first people to check out the Illuvium and their new worlds with Overworld coming up soon.